Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whichever time you guys are checking us out, and welcome back to another episode of XS Gaming Podcast. This is going to be fun because this is episode 151. I'm one of your hosts, Xander Skullion, and as always, join with me as my wonderful co-host, Mr. James Gruesome. What's up, James?
I think I drank some 151 one time. That's kind of tough, but I hope everybody's doing well through all the craziness still going on. Hopefully people that need it. There's a lot of things with new stimulus checks coming out once again, which people really need because the world is messed up. But I hope everybody's doing okay, and some people are getting back to work. As I've said before, my work schedule has been like more than ever, and it's like I feel kind of bad because I'm like, God, I'm being worked to death, and then there's people that don't have jobs, and so it can really kind of take a toll on everybody, where it's like you're struggling, or it's like you just have that guilt, So I was like, I've really tried to help out some of my friends since I have the capability, to do that, just because I think it's like the right thing to do. But the weather's warming up, man. I mean, we went from like 70 one day to like 30 the next. Like I don't know if I wear sweatpants to work because it's like 30 in the morning, but then it's going to be like 60, but I might be out so late on the route that I need the sweatpants again, and it's just hard. It's hard to
what you need? You need some of those. You remember those pants that used to be able to zip off in the shorts?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you need some of those. Like those, like as much people make fun of those are like so freaking convenient. I think they still have them.
Yeah, I'm sure you can find some forms. Interesting aspect. Like last summer, I have some bad skin conditions. I have like a really nice, like a light pair of pants I actually wore all last summer, and they managed to not be too hot. It was like an old pair of Lee dungarees with this really like, thin material.
Yeah,
they were great for the summer, man. Like I wasn't burning up. I actually didn't wear a single pair of shorts at work during last summer. But I mean, yeah, I think the daylight savings time's coming up soon.
Yep. By the spring forward.
You just never know like what's going on. We just hope some things will change and get a little bit better. But I'll just kind of keep chugging along. And like I said, I hope everybody's doing the best they can and get the help they need and still try to have fun and a good life. As much as you can while it's going on, because it's rough, and who knows how long it'll last. We can just hope it'll get better.
Indeed, and not too much has been happening in the gaming news. I did see a bunch of stuff popping up last night about again Switch Pro rumors. I feel like the quarter of like the year or sooner we get Switch Pro rumors, and this one right here. I don't have a news article in front of me, but they were talking about, how this Switch Pro might have exclusive games, and the leak apparently that it's going to be a new OLED screen and 4K, and I was like looking at it, and I was really thinking about it, and exclusive is such a hot topic for gamers because on one hand, you got folks about the Switch that aren't too happy with the thought of exclusives going to a new Switch console because the Switch just turned 4 years old.
Yeah, and how many people are just getting one of those right now, whether it's that or just a strictly handheld one, and then now it's like, oh man, we all know it's going to happen with upgrades, but you don't like that feeling of people kind of feeling like they get screwed if they get the old edition and miss out on games.
So yeah, you got one crowd with that, and then you got the other crowd that's talking about, because the hot topic right now is talking about the PS5 and Series X now being 3 months old, and everyone's like, oh, after 3 months, is it still worth it to get it? And a lot of people will talk about the Series X, and they're like, other than Game Pass. They're like it, and I've heard it with the PS5 too, so don't get me wrong. But everyone's been saying, it's okay to wait because of the exclusives. And it kind of boggles my mind, and it's kind of funny because on one camp you have folks being like, oh, you gotta have exclusives. You gotta have exclusives. Exclusives are the thing. And then on another camp, you have people that are like kind of getting apprehensive and getting kind of aggressive about a new Switch model that might have exclusives.
And you wonder if they'll take clues, yeah, from
Yeah.
the 3DS
Yeah.
Deluxe, which was
Yeah.
kind of a failure. Which as good as the Switch does, like I really don't think they're going to run into that issue.
No.
I don't know if they'll have games that run at a lower rate, which I mean that's not a good thing. I'm really hoping with Nintendo that if it comes out that it's still a good. I thought the Switch was a good affordable price.
Hmm.
So maybe if people haven't delved into Switch, they'll go ahead and jump up to this one. There's always trade-in programs and shit like that. So yeah, there's different ways that hopefully if you really want one, it's getting that time to decide. Do you want a new Switch? Do you want the
Yep.
PS5? Do you want the Xbox? Do can you buy them all? If you can, more power to you, man. like,
Yeah.
like do
I
it.
mean, I'm the kind of person like, okay, like in a scenario that, say I woke up this morning or the next morning, I woke up and they were like, Nintendo just announced a new Switch, and the exclusive is Breath of the Wild. But Breath of the Wild is also coming out for the OG Switch, but the new one's going to be a little better, like frame rate wise. That would justify me buying a new Switch. But if it's just a better screen, better battery life, and runs at 4K, I don't mind waiting. I really don't mind waiting on that. I'd
Yeah,
rather I'd
no.
rather get a PS5 or Series X at that point.
You can have the wait. I've been real happy with my Switch, and like I said, we have the possibility. We had Breath of the Wild on Wii U,
Yep.
and we had it on Switch, and if it's like some different minor differences, but you still get the whole gist of the game, and
Mm-hmm.
more of a complete play. Whereas the other one, might have some extras. It's just it's always kind of like a wait and see, but it's something that
That
as
yeah.
gamers we always have to expect that new version. And it's like, do you want it right away? Do you want to wait? Because sometimes that new version could be a couple of years, and sometimes you want it now. You really just got to look at like your logistics, your money, see what works best for you. Or instead it's like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I could upgrade to this system, or maybe I could just get a totally different system,
Yeah.
and it kind of leaves a lot of people stuck. But like I said, exclusives are great. Microsoft's snagging more up, and we'd love to see the day to where we have always bring up the wrestling games, man. Dude, the 3 different wrestling games, 3 different systems
Oh yeah.
was just it. I mean, that was awesome.
And I think when it comes to exclusives, I think exclusives are a touchy topic for folks who don't have all the consoles, because I think ultimately they don't want to feel left out. They don't want to feel like they're not getting, say, Final Fantasy 16 because they have a Series X. Because right now, Final Fantasy 16 is exclusive on PS5. So I think when it comes to exclusive, I think people are upset about exclusives when it comes to that. But ultimately, I think now, even more so than ever with these new consoles, I think exclusives are all, and I will always say this, exclusives are important to give that console identity. I feel like if we didn't have any exclusives, if everything was the same across the board, I think they wouldn't have as much competition in this field. This companies, they wouldn't have as many competitions, and we would ultimately suffer. You know, so as much as folks don't like the idea of exclusives because, like I said, they might be missing out, I think it's very important because that right there gives you the initiative on what console to get.
Yeah, and you had the option, like I said, with Xbox as far as like getting, Game Pass on, what the computer, Steam. I don't know
Yeah.
how that works. I know there's other options of getting that. So like maybe that's a possibility for some people. You're always going to have your loyalist. You're always going to have your franchises. I think that will stay on one system, and we've
Yep.
kind of got used to that. But just to have more and more besides those mainstays, it's like it's just nothing but good. I think for video game players,
Mm-hmm.
other than our pockets at times, which might can suffer. But it's all about that choice and like what you're looking for at that moment. And hey, there's always just hey, wait a year down the line. These two
Yeah.
systems pretty much just came out. We all know there's always like bugs and problems and things, and sales, and it's just good sometimes just to wait, take your time, and eventually you can possibly have them all.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's nothing wrong with waiting. I mean, right now, like I don't feel bad not having a PS5 or Series X. I mean, would I like those new consoles right now? Absolutely. But I don't feel like I'm missing out on anything personally. But
No, because there's still so many good games on like every system. That
yeah,
I think if you had any other one, like you're gonna have a good time.
yeah,
And some have the other option, like I said, like with the Switch, where you got the handheld, you got the on-screen,
mm-hmm,
and like that's a big bonus. Lots of Nintendo love, of course. If you're a Nintendo fanboy, you're probably going to go with that. And we've
mm-hmm.
always got our Sony, Xbox. I was always a bit more of a Sony. I've kind of switched over to Xbox, but I mean, I love them all.
Yeah. I mean, that's the best mindset to have. I feel like I feel like anyone who's a extreme loyalist, like fanboy, I feel like you're selling yourself short. I always compare fanboyism to like as if you went to one fast food place and that was it. Like you only ate at McDonald's, you never ate at Bojangles or Popeyes or anywhere like that. You were just like, I'm just a McDonald's guy. I just like my Big Macs and McNuggets, and that's it. It's like, man, you're missing out on those Cajun fries from Bojangles, man.
Spicy nuggets are back too, man.
Yeah. Which the spicy nuggets from McDonald's are pretty good. I don't really like that sauce.
No, I told you too when you got it.
Yeah.
I said this sauce is whack, man.
Yeah, that sauce was kind of weak, but which is funny, but yeah, and I mean that's pretty much it with gaming news. I mean, I haven't really saw anything that really popped out. I mean, of course, we had a Nintendo Direct since the last episode, and I do want to address something with the last episode because right now, episode 150, we had Ryan Cadaver on the podcast, and it was a fantastic show. It's not on YouTube. And the only reason why it's not on YouTube, it's on Spotify and iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, anywhere else that you catch podcasts. If we're not on those podcast catchers, just message me on Twitter at XS Gaming Podcast. But the only reason why it's not on YouTube is because I actually had some issues with my mic. I I had my mic set up where it was recording my webcam mic and not my external microphone. So
Like the good mic.
yeah, it didn't have the good mic. It sounded it's still listenable. Like it's not a bad episode by all means. But I do want to say, if you want to listen to the last episode, check us out on Spotify, check us out on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and give us a rating and a review because it really helps the show. It helps the transparency, and it helps more folks find our podcasts. But I mean, other than the Nintendo Direct, I think the biggest thing they announced, of course, was Skyward Sword celebrating the 35th anniversary of The Legend of Zelda. We're getting Skyward Sword on the Switch in July, which is pretty cool because I didn't really play a whole lot of Skyward Sword. I had it for the Wii, and I played a little bit of it. I even recorded a Let's Play of it, like a live stream. But I'm excited to go and revisit it on the Switch because most importantly, the motion controls are optional, very much like Mario Galaxy was, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and those are a couple like I really kind of missed out on and didn't really play. Wouldn't mind checking them out, And you're gonna get newer versions. Of course, it was nice to see the more super the hell was it Super Mario Land World, the one that was on the Wii U.
Yeah, I've been playing that. It's been a lot of fun. I've been playing the Bowser's Fury, which is like a totally brand new game. It's like a brand new campaign, a totally different thing. I mean, honestly, if it was just like Super Mario 3D World, I probably would have waited because I have it on the Wii U and I played it to death on the Wii U. So I would have waited because I wouldn't want to spend another $60. But I heard Bowser's Fury was a completely new game. I'm like, all right, I'll check it out, and it's fun. It's a lot of fun. I'll get into more of that with games we've been playing, but
it's nice to have that extra stuff added on too, especially as many as they ported over from the Wii because so many people didn't play them, and I'm totally in favor of them, pushing those games over just because so many missed them. A lot of them were good at games, whether it's Toad's Adventure, what have you. There's a lot that have been put over. And it's a good chance because there's a lot of games a lot of people missed out. And if you bought it before, you might feel a little in. People are getting a little upset about the prices, but I mean, Come on, man. I mean,
Yeah, they
you got to expect like $60 for a game, you know?
Yeah, and I mean, and the thing is too, they're going to keep their value. That's something I always tried to stress to people when they announce these first party Nintendo games, whether it's a remake or a brand new game. They're always upset that it's $60, and I'm like, listen, if you buy it for $60 and 2 years down the road you do not want that game anymore, you're going to get your money back. You know, if you sell it on eBay, even if you take it to GameStop and trade it in, you're going to at least get $30 trading credit at GameStop.
Also,
And
too, we never know when, like, the Wii U will become, it's starting to become a bit more one of those collectible consoles. And if you
oh, it's
have
already
some of those,
starting.
yeah, if you have some of those older games and you have the Switch versions, there's a good chance, you can make a few bucks,
Yep.
selling off those old versions.
Yeah, the Wii
So,
U, the Wii U is starting to become very collectible, and I knew it was going to happen. I was like, I wish I could go back to an episode of the podcast because I feel like I've mentioned it before in a podcast episode that I was like, mark my words, the Wii U is going to be collectible because it's got a small library. It was a commercial failure, and it actually had really good games. The games that, I mean, listen, the games are so good that we're getting re-releases on Switch for some reason. I mean, there's a reason why we got so many Wii U ports coming to the Switch because the games are really, really good. So I always knew that the Wii U was going to go up in value, and it's slowly starting to do that. It's starting to become one of those like I don't want to say like a Neo Geo type of thing, or it's becoming almost like the TurboGrafx of Nintendo consoles. Slowly, you know.
man, I'm sure everybody's still waiting on that Devil's Nine re-release too. That'll
Yeah. Oh
that
yeah,
was that one
the
that ended
devil
up for
the
like $100
yeah
game.
the devil's third. I
Third, that's it.
yeah the only reason why I remember that is because everyone used to jokingly call it the devil's turd. Like yeah, because it wasn't from what I heard it wasn't a good game. But I mean other than that, that's about pretty much it with gaming news. I know the new
Yeah.
Resident Evil is right around the corner, and people are really excited about that. Big shout out to Justin down Phoenix. The day is his birthday, and the reason why I know that is because he posted on Facebook that he got a copy or a pre-release of Resident Evil Village on Steam. He went ahead and got it on Steam, and he's waiting for that to release. So big shout out to him. Hope he has a great birthday.
Yeah,
And
definitely. And also too, I'll mention because I'm a big fan. Retromania, I've been waiting on for a while, and it's actually out on Steam. That's the sequel to WrestleFest. It was in the works for many years. Seen a few Steam reviews where, some people have had some complaints about speed, difficulty, and maybe it's some things they can patch. It's still actually not out on consoles. It was supposed to come out on the 26th. It
mhm.
hit Steam, but they ran into some, I can't remember the proper word for it, but something ran into some issues with consoles. But excuse me, but it's been a week, and so it should probably be coming out in about another week. And it's one like I'm
Yeah.
definitely gonna get. Like I said, reviews are not, old school WrestleFest kind of arcade style. Looks just looks really fun. I think it'll be great, even maybe more for like multiplayer, like when I have my pay-per-view get-togethers. So I was really looking forward to that, but probably waiting another week. But it'll be out soon, and like I said,
Yeah.
hopefully it'll live up to the time. But once again, small team, they just wanted to put out a good product, and I hope it ends up being, like I said, despite some of the reviews, maybe they can patch some things, and it will end up being, just a really cool, fun, arcadey wrestling game for, us old school gamers that grew up with superstars and WrestleFest. Like, it just should be really fun.
Indeed, indeed. Now, the main meat and potatoes of this episode that I wanted us to cover today was we were going to talk about Mortal Kombat, and the reason why I brought this up is because, right after the podcast, right after episode 150, I think maybe like a week later, they released the first trailer for the Mortal Kombat movie, and I have to admit I totally forgot about this Mortal Kombat movie. I knew it was coming out. I had no idea it was coming out so soon. It's coming out in like freaking April. I'm like, oh, okay. And they showed the trailer, and the trailer is actually really freaking good. It's a really good trailer. I don't know how the movie's going to be, but the trailer was really good. And I was like, well, this leads on to a great way to talk about probably one of the biggest franchises of fighting games. I feel like, like thrash metal has like the big four. I feel like fighting games have the big four. You got Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Tekken, and what do you think? You think the fourth would be Fatal Fury? You think that would be the fourth?
Man, I don't know if we're gonna put Fatal Fury. You might consider King of
That
Fighters.
that's what I'm thinking of. King of Fighters.
King of Fighters, and even let's see, what would be? Damn, I just had it on my mind. Uh, Soul Calibur's still up there.
Yeah, Soul
If you like,
Calibur.
if you like that weapon one, it would be, kind of hard. When do we have to sit and kind of like pick our little Stonehenge? I think of fighting games. You got to kind of give a total judge of how they've progressed.
Yeah.
How many in the series, like how many stinkers would have stayed consistent, and so
I
much that
think
the
yeah,
fans love.
I think that would be a good a comment for the viewers. What do you think would be the fourth out of the big four of fighting games? I mean, you think it would be Soul Calibur, King of Fighters, Virtual Fighter, even though Virtual
Hell,
Fighter hasn't done anything in a while.
Dead or Alive. Like,
Samurai Showdown. I know Guilty Gear and Blaze Blue. That those two are big ones as well.
definitely, they definitely have a bit more of I think, a niche crowd. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
sure they'd be in some people's Mount Rushmores for sure, but as far as like your mainstream people, they probably wouldn't be, while still being great games. But it's nice to have that many different fighting franchises.
Yeah.
To be able to pick from and find one that really works for you. To see how some have kind of stayed the same, or you see many others progress. Especially,
I,
like, I think for me, Mortal Kombat has been one of the best ones to have a great progression. Starting off as
yeah.
gimmick and turning into what I think is actually really good
Yeah, I
fighting game.
think I think I had the best comparison. Okay, so when you think of heavy metal, you think of like the godfathers of heavy metal. You have folks that either talk about Led Zeppelin or Black Sabbath. And I feel like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat are like the Led Zeppelin and Black Sabbath of fighting games. I think that's a good comparison.
Yeah, that, or if you want to get a little bit newer, especially back in the '80s, it's like Metallica, Megadeth. You
Yeah,
know,
that's a hey, they had the same rivalry too. They had the same rivalry. I mean, I feel like Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat are two very different fighting games, but they definitely, if a new Street Fighter was coming out, you knew a new Mortal Kombat was right around the corner, or vice versa. But, I'm going to ask you, James, what was your first experience with the Mortal Kombat series?
Mortal Kombat would just be, for me, would be like the putt putt right in my house. I used to walk to, and you know, we'd always, we'd had Street Fighter. That was the one that kind of took, well, Street Fighter 2 to be specific, was the one that took over.
Yeah,
But you kind of had this new graphic form, and we kind of experienced first in Pit Fighter, which I'm actually a fan of
I'm
Pit
glad you
Fighter.
mentioned that. I was about to mention Pit Fighter because that was like one of the first games that kind of had that look that Mortal Kombat took of having these digitized actors like with motion capture. That was something that was very new at the time.
Yeah, yeah, it was exciting. Like, you look back now, like, well, maybe that doesn't look, that great, but it was different for us. I mean, it was revolutionary because
Especially
you didn't
Pit
see.
Fighter because Pit
I
Fighter.
mean, yeah, I mean, it gave a little bit more like kind of realistic look. And Pit Fighter did have the three-player option. Very tough, very crappy. Like, a lot of people hate it. Like I said, I'm still a fan. But Mortal Kombat took that, like I said, that digital reenactment style, and then just turned it into a regular one-on-one
Yeah.
fighting game.
Yep.
They did have a bit of a gimmick, at first. Street Fighter was just the pure fighting. Mortal Kombat, I think, while being uh, a less good fighting game, did of course have that gimmick, which so many of us loved. That was
Hmm.
blood and violence.
And it's really interesting. I wonder where we would be at today if Ed Boon and John Tobias, the creators of Mortal Kombat, if they got what they originally wanted to do with Mortal Kombat, because originally Mortal Kombat was going to be a fighting game starring Jean-Claude Van Damme, because he was really big into Bloodsport, and it's ironic because Jean-Claude Van Damme went ahead and was in the Street Fighter movie as Guile. And we'll get into Mortal Kombat movies. We'll definitely talk about that. But you got to. But I wonder where we would be at today in an alternate universe if we had a Jean-Claude Van Damme fighting game instead of Mortal Kombat. I wonder if it would still be as successful, if it would just be something that we would look back and be like, oh, you remember back in the 90s when Jean-Claude Van Damme had a fighting game for Midway? Like that was pretty interesting.
Yeah, like Jackie Chan had a couple, and
Yeah.
also I'd wonder too, like, would it just be lost in time, or would they had lost the rights to Van Damme, and it would have continued on its own? Also, having Van Damme, would you have been able to have fatalities? Because you have certain issues. We can look at things with the DC games that came out later, where like they didn't really want fatalities early on. Like, would Van Damme be cool? Like, well, I don't know if I want to get killed in this game.
Oh man, that's a good point. I mean, in that alternate universe, that Jean-Claude Van Damme could have been a game that, if you want to play it, you'd have to emulate it. Like it might have been one of those games that never got re-released on Virtual Console. It might have been a one-hit, wonder. That,
right, especially dealing with an actor being involved. And I really
that's a good
think
point.
The better choice was to just have Johnny Cage instead, who was pretty much Jean-Claude Van Damme, as they mentioned. Jean-Claude, Johnny Cage, actor. It works out, but yeah, I think they were better off going off.
It was
on their own and doing their own thing, or like I said, the Van Damme game would have stopped and it would have continued, and maybe we still would have had Mortal Kombat. But I mean, it's one of those things we're never really gonna know.
Yeah, it was an unfortunate event. It was one of those things that didn't work out, but it worked out better in the long run because I mean, now Mortal Kombat is, it's a huge game.
Quick question, real quick though. Did you enjoy the Street Fighter, the movie game that actually had Jean-Claude Van Damme?
You know what? I actually had never played the Street Fighter movie game until like years later. I want to say it was just a couple of years ago I played it for the first time. I never rented it on the PlayStation 1 or Sega Saturn. Actually, that was where I played it first, was on the Sega Saturn. And honestly, it wasn't that bad of a game.
And I do believe there's two different versions. I think which I don't think I've played the arcade. I want to say the arcade and home systems ones were kind of like two different versions also.
Yeah. I remember because I have the arcade version on the Raspberry Pi, and then I have the version on the Saturn, and they weren't bad games. I mean, it was very much of a hybrid of Mortal Kombat meets Street Fighter, because it was more Mortal Kombat than Street Fighter, because they kind of moved like Mortal Kombat, because I mean, it makes sense. It's all digitized characters, but they had special moves like Street Fighter. Like, it was really weird. It wasn't a bad game though.
No, I actually enjoyed it. I think it gets panned a bit more than it deserved. It could be a fun time. We're not saying it's not on the Mount Rushmore, but if you're a Street Fighter fan and a Mortal Kombat fan, and you get the emulation or want to buy an old disc or something, I mean, hey, check it out. Like, you might actually, I had fun with it,
Yeah, it's like getting a taco at Burger King. Like, it's not pretty, but it's not bad. It's not bad.
It works.
It works. I actually did like the tacos from Burger King on the side note. But no, so my first experience in Mortal Kombat was from my sister. My sister introduced me to a lot of fighting games because she went to the skating rink. So I would go to the skating rink with her every once in a while, even though I didn't care about skating. If anything, I would use trying to quote unquote learn how to skate, by just like flirting with her friends because she was an older sister, so she had older friends, and I used to flirt with them all the time. It's like the little brother. I'm like, oh, I don't know how to skate. Teach me how to skate. I really
Oh,
didn't
he's
care.
so cute.
Yeah, yeah, I didn't care about learning how to skate, but I did like going to the skating rink to play arcade games, and that's where I was introduced to Street Fighter. And I remember she came home from school and she had drawn this crude picture of like a dragon insignia. And I was like, that's really cool. What's that? And she's like, oh, it's the symbol for Mortal Kombat. And I'm like, well, what's Mortal Kombat? She's like, it's like Street Fighter, but more violent. And I'm like, I want to play this. So we went to Blockbuster and we rented Mortal Kombat on the Super Nintendo. And it's funny because I mean that's one of the very inferior versions of Mortal Kombat.
What was that your first experience in Mortal Kombat? Was the home version?
The home version on Super Nintendo, yeah.
Okay, yeah, because like I'm a little bit older, so it's like I remember, when it hit in the arcades. It's
Yeah,
like I was
I
there.
played it later on the arcades, like probably like the next weekend later. I went to a convenience store that was in our neighborhood that we called like the little store. That's what we called it. And I went to the little store and they had Mortal Kombat there, and that's when I was like, "Oh my god, it's got blood. It's got more violence than I expected." Man, Super Nintendo version sucks, you know.
Yeah, oh man.
And then I found out later on I got a Genesis. I got the Genesis version. I put in that freaking infamous blood code, and I was like, "Oh, that's so much better." Wasn't as pretty. I think the Super Nintendo version, like the graphics were better, the sound was better, but it lacked the violence that you got with the Genesis version. That's why so many people back then preferred the Genesis version compared to the Super Nintendo.
Yeah, and I'd go with Super Nintendo being the better game, I think, overall. And it still blew my mind because like you didn't have the blood, you didn't have the head rips, heart rips, but like you could still burn people to death
Yeah,
into a pile of ashes and a skull. And I'm kind of like, well, I'm
and
okay. I'm like, yes,
all the
still murder.
blood, yeah, all the blood was sweat. It was really weird. It was like they colored in all the blood with like this like weird pukey yellow color. And one of the biggest things that I gathered was the pit. Because the pit, that stage when you would uppercut and you would see the bottom of the pit, or if you were fighting Reptile, the pit had like all these heads on the spikes, and all the heads were actually developers from the game. In the Super Nintendo version, you had no severed heads, so
Yeah.
that was something really interesting.
And you can still fall on a pile of spikes and
Yeah,
pretty much die. It was just, it was, it just was very odd. It's like, was it no blood, no graphic gore, but yeah, you're still gonna get killed.
yeah,
So
it was like violence but with limits.
yes,
Yeah, it had its limits. I was like, we can't uppercut someone's head off, but hey, you can put your foot in their chest and wiggle it around. So I always thought that was kind of weird. Or like Raiden, like he would do his shock move. I actually like Raiden's fatality on the Super Nintendo version, because in the Genesis version, it was like the arcade where he would like shock the head off. The head would just explode. When the Super Nintendo version, he would do it and the whole body would turn to ash and the skull would lay there. I thought that was kind of cool. I thought that was a little cooler than the Genesis and arcade version.
yeah, he kind of pulled it off with that, and like Sub Zero, there was a couple of ashes one. I think Sonya might even had
Yeah.
ash one too. Um, but that was just the limitations. Nintendo was trying to be a bit more family friendly, but
Yeah.
Mortal Kombat's not really a family friendly game, so to
It
say.
it's funny you mentioned that, because yeah, it was never a family friendly kind of game, but boy did it have a lot of merchandise. A matter of fact, I remember when I did get it for the Super Nintendo, when I bought it, it came with a comic book.
Hmm.
It came with a comic book that was like kind of like the story of Mortal Kombat, and that's something I will always say about Mortal Kombat. Mortal Kombat always had a story. It was always about this tournament of people from different dimensions and different parts of the world would fight. And you had Shang Tsung, who would like steal people's souls. You had Goro, who was like the champion, this four-armed big monster. It always had a little bit of a story to it. And of course, Mortal Kombat was so successful, it came out with, in my opinion, one of the best in the series, and that is Mortal Kombat 2. Mortal Kombat 2 is just so freaking good. That was such a good fighting game.
Yeah, they finally decided to like give in. They said,
Yeah.
"Hey, we need to go ahead, get the blood, everything, complete." It's like that was a true experience, and for me, Mortal Kombat. I'm trying to think, was it if it was two or one? It might have actually been. No, I really can't remember what one or two. They were supposed to come out on the same day, and somehow KB Toys got Mortal Kombat first,
Yeah.
and I actually ended up kind of getting a week early before the Genesis, like on the Super Nintendo, which was really cool. And also, too, to note, these games, man, they were fucking 69, $75 after
Yeah,
tax.
they were
Don't
not cheap.
complain. Don't complain about game prices on re-releases, man. These
Oh
games are
yeah.
$2 now, and it's like we're paying $75. But damn,
Yeah.
it was worth it. It was worth it back then.
Now I will say, like prior, I was talking about how Mortal Kombat on the Super Nintendo was kind of weak. I feel like the Mortal Kombat 2 version was so much better than the Genesis. The Genesis version, the sound wasn't as good, the graphics weren't as good. Super Nintendo version was like at the time was the closest to arcade perfect. At that time. Now, of course, we've had more compilations and arcade perfect ports come out, but back in the day, before the Saturn, because even the Saturn wasn't as good as the Super Nintendo version, because the Saturn and the PlayStation version of Mortal Kombat 2, it still had to load with Shang Tsung, which was kind of bullshit.
Uh,
You remember
yeah.
that? You'd fight Shang Tsung, and if he was going to change into another character, it would actually load. It would stop mid fight. I think it was like a option you could turn off. Which who wants to turn it off? That's the whole point of playing the Shang Tsung, is that you can play as anybody if you know the combination.
It's just one of those things you kind of got used to, at the time, with the stalling and everything. But as you were saying, with more arcade perfect games, I'd give those two for two of the fighting games like Street Fighter Two. To me was almost arcade perfect. Same with Mortal Kombat too. It was a
Yeah,
really great time for these games that we spent so much money on in the arcade, and then you could spend a lot more money, but you'd have it at home. You could have your friend play. There was no more quarters. It was
yeah,
just a really awesome time for the games like that, and those were the two competing. And I will bring up too, man, the as far as the Mortal Kombat like Dragon Emblem, it's still one of the coolest.
yeah.
It's just still one of the coolest emblems.
It's iconic. Like you see that emblem, it doesn't. Man, you could be in the middle of like some bootleg flea market shop, and if you see a T-shirt with that Mortal Kombat emblem, you're like, man, that's pretty cool. That's pretty rad right there. It's just iconic, and
And still around.
yeah, still around to this day. It's a huge part in video game culture. Now, going from Mortal Kombat 2, we entered into Mortal Kombat at this point was just a huge freaking commercial success. Everyone wanted more. We had the Mortal Kombat movies, which I think we could touch base on that, because I mean the first Mortal Kombat movie, classic. Was it a great movie? No, but it was classic. And it was still, for the most part, when you talk about video game movies, especially during that time, that Mortal Kombat movie was pretty freaking awesome. Iconic soundtrack. That theme, it doesn't matter if you're 40 years old or 3 years old right now. You hear that theme song, you want to roundhouse kick someone in the face.
Look at that. Yeah, the Immortals, they worked, or some of the members might have been part of one of the old groups, the Lords of Acid, which
Oh, I
was
remember that. I remember
slightly
Lords of Acid.
techno industrial band. They had a lot of members of the group, or either they were like the producers of
Hmm.
Lords of Acid, were highly involved in that. And like you said, I'm with you. Like the movie is, to me, it's still so enjoyable. I mean, we didn't get heart rips and head rips and things like that. But I thought for what they had, it had some really good casting. And me being an old Martial Schools movie fan, I always thought Cynthia Rothrock would have been great for Sonya, even though her character Sonya was based, on Cynthia Rothrock. But
Yeah.
Kari Harajuku Tagawa as Shang Tsung. I mean, come on, like you can't get better than that, man. I mean, he's still just one of the most iconic characters. I think even if you think of the game, you think of Shang
Yeah.
Tsung, and you think of him.
And big shout out to Funk Legend. I had to look this up because I didn't want to mess up his name. As a bass player, I didn't want to mess up his name. Big shout out to George S. Clinton. George Clinton
Yes,
doing the music for Mortal Kombat as well. He had a stab into that. So
definitely did. He had an intro, and he had one of the final tracks, and just
yeah.
talking to the soundtrack too. I mean, I gotta say, like, that was a very awesome one. I mean, we kind of had the two. We had the one with the Chinese Ninja Warrior, which was the Mortal Kombat soundtrack, but then we had the
Yeah.
movie soundtrack.
Yeah, let's talk about that soundtrack for a second, okay? Because I know when I did my reaction to the new Mortal Kombat trailer, my outro was the Sub-Zero theme. This was a really interesting soundtrack because it was like this house electric 90s, so 90s soundtrack to Mortal Kombat, and it was like every song was about each character. Like I remember the freaking Sonya Blade one where she's like, "I'm Sonya Blade," blah 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 blah.
I just couldn't stop listening to that Sub-Zero song,
The
man.
Sub-Zero one's the best track on there.
That one's my
It's
favorite.
really good.
But then you had the movie soundtrack, which,
Yeah.
like as I mentioned, working with the Immortals, you had bands at the time. It's really a throwback. Gravity Kills. I mean, it was really a little bit
Mm-hmm.
more kind of techno metal inspired soundtrack. KMFDM, Gravity Kills. Tracy Lords, famous actress, even had a song which she had a couple albums. I don't think she actually sang on this song, so I don't know what the deal was. Geezer or GZR was
Oh
a
yeah.
band.
Which had the bassist from Black Sabbath and the singer from
Right.
Fear Factory.
Yeah, and originally it was a different singer. There's an early album that does not have Burton C. Bell on it, but I was a huge Fear Factory fan.
Mm-hmm.
And Geezer was on there. Fear Factory itself, I mean, that was famous for the Sub-Zero and Scorpion fight. Typo Negative was on there.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of my still favorites, I bring up Mother's Day Out, a band that only had one album, My Soul is Wet, which I think was great. It was a bunch of teenagers. It is still just an awesome album. They had the We All Bleed Red song
Yeah.
on there, and I mean that was a great group, it's a great album. All those guys, it's cool to see most of them are still working in music. The main singer, he's in like a Christian band now. A couple guys are in like some kind of like doom metal bands, Rewake, and something like Dead Birds. A lot of the guys are still active, and there was rumors for many years of a Mother's Day Out reunion
Mm-hmm.
that one of it might have happened at like some kind of festival that I really kind of wanted to go to just to see them, but it was pretty far away, and like I said at the end, I'm not really sure if it happened, but I mean that was just a great band. I
Yeah.
highly recommend just their CD. It's on YouTube. Look it up. They had a little bit of rap on a couple. His Mortal Kombat song had like a slight bit of rap, but it wasn't really a rap metal band.
Yeah,
So
and
I wouldn't get the wrong idea.
yeah, and I
It was
think I think what it was too at the very end of the day, like that was something that was big in the '90s, was movie soundtracks.
Yeah,
That could be a whole
Spawn.
that could be a whole podcast within itself. I mean, that was the thing. I remember going to Camelot Music and buying
Yeah.
movie soundtracks and listening to like I'll say right now, this could be a whole podcast because I could talk all day about the Crow soundtrack, how great that movie soundtrack was. But the movie was really popular. I remember they had an animated TV show, which I'm going to get into, but they also had an animated like advertisement for the Mortal Kombat movie.
Was that the video cassette kind of
Yeah, it was
thing
the
that came
video
out?
cassette. It was a 30-minute short, and it was pretty much a watered down version of the intro to the Mortal Kombat movie, of them being on the ship and being introduced to all the fighters. And most importantly, it was just like they had these really weird, and at the time it looked awesome. It looked amazing. They had these like CGI fights.
Yeah.
Of Sub-Zero and Scorpion, Shang Tsung versus Kung Lao. And, looking back now, it looks so primitive. It's so polygon and shape featured. You're just like, oh, man, this looks bad. But I remember at the time watching it and be like, I can't wait to see a Mortal Kombat look like this, And at the very end of the credits, because after it was all over, they'd be like, if you want to see the rest of it, watch Mortal Kombat the movie, come in the theaters this day, blah, blah, blah. But at the credits, they would show images of the slots combination in Mortal Kombat 3. Now, when Mortal Kombat the movie came out, Mortal Kombat 3 was right around the corner, and that was the big one. That was the game that was coming out that people were like, holy shit, because Mortal Kombat was already huge. I will say, though, on a record, I will say I'm not a big fan of Mortal Kombat 3.
Same.
I feel like Mortal Kombat 3 took everything we loved about Mortal Kombat 1 and 2 and just kind of watered it down, and it was almost like Mortal Kombat went to a Three Stooges vibe, which I get because they were under so much controversy with their violence, but it got silly. It got really silly,
man.
Oh,
the run button was the one that really ruined it for me.
Because it was so weird. That run button, you would run it, and the combos. I loved the combos they had. That was really awesome. But that run was so hokey. Then you had the really hokey like fatalities. Like I said, they had to dumb it down. Jax in Mortal Kombat 2 would rip your arms off, or rip you in half. In Mortal Kombat 3, he would turn into a giant and like stomp you with his boot. Like that was just, I was like, what?
Yeah, see that one, I probably played that one so little, and it's like I might have bought it, and then when you had the Ultimate Mortal Kombat after that, you're like, oh man. But the bad thing was Ultimate Mortal Kombat had all the characters, and we can't help but mention a lot of the palette swap ninjas, which I didn't really mind because they all played different, and everybody had their favorite ninja, but it still had that run. It was Ultimate was too much like.
I remember Mortal Kombat Ultimate 3. I was really happy when they released that one because the original Mortal Kombat 3. Another reason why I absolutely hated it, and I remember reading a magazine in a grocery store while Mom was shopping. I grabbed a copy of Electronic Gaming Monthly. See the previews for Mortal Kombat 3. I'm ecstatic. They're coming out with a new Mortal Kombat. I'm going through the roster. There's no fucking Scorpion. Like, how can you have a Mortal Kombat game? Yeah, the original Mortal Kombat 3 did not have Scorpion. It had, it had unmasked Sub-Zero. It had, and they had the cyborg ninjas, Cyrax and Sector. And I think they were trying to, make Cyrax the new Scorpion because he had the very similar move sets. He had the teleport hit. He had the green net instead of the spear move. So I think they were like, oh, well, we'll introduce these people to these, cybernetic ninjas. But I was like, man, you got to bring back Scorpion. So they brought back Scorpion in Mortal Kombat Ultimate 3. And I was like, okay, that's what you should have done.
All the other, the palette swap ones, which, like I said, I didn't mind. But it's like the Rain, Chameleon. I mean, another favorite for me, too, was Reptile. Who I thought was always really cool. And he'd been an original secret character.
Yeah.
In part 1, to have all those. The one I think Chameleon was he the one that switched in between different powers of one.
And you had two different Chameleons too. In the PlayStation version, because Chameleon was introduced in Mortal Kombat Trilogy, which you had Mortal Kombat 3. You had Ultimate 3, then you had Trilogy. Trilogy was like the full roster. I mean, you even had... But it was funny because in the Mortal Kombat Trilogy on the N64, Chameleon was a female ninja. So she changed from Katana to Melina to Jade.
Oh, wow.
And then in the PlayStation version, Chameleon was a male fighter that changed in between the other male ninjas.
Okay, I actually didn't know about that because I guess I didn't never actually play that one on the 64. So
You weren't missing much. The one on 64 was kind of weak.
yeah, 64 just didn't really seem to translate very well to Mortal Kombat. It
It was
seemed
that
to fit
freaking
better.
controller. That controller was not made for fighting games. It really wasn't. But then Mortal Kombat. When Mortal Kombat 3 came out, when it was released, then they made the Mortal Kombat Annihilation movie, which was really bad. Like,
It gets panned, man. But I gotta say, after like a while back, me and my wife, because my wife she does like video game movies.
hmm
I actually saw it at the Dollar Theater.
oh
And it
yeah,
did seem like a real stinker at the time, but going back and watching it, like I kind of like I don't
the
hate it, man.
the act. I think the big thing was the acting in Annihilation was like borderline Cinemax quality.
Late night Cinemax.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. I mean, it was like, when I think of Annihilation, I think of this old crude video edit that my friend Mikey did back in high school, where him and his friend Billy took that scene in their original in the opening of Annihilation when all the ninjas start coming down because Shao Kahn came to the Earth realm and all the ninjas, all of his goons start coming down from the sky, and they edited it where it played It's Raining Men.
Oh wow.
So every time I think of Annihilation, I think about that scene and It's Raining Men. That's what I think of every time. But
I hope Rain came out when they did that.
Rain was he had a very small role in Annihilation. I remember that. Which Rain was actually based off of Prince because he was purple. His name was Rain. Purple
But very
Rain.
interesting note too. The character that played Reptile in the first Mortal Kombat movie actually played the Sub-Zero
Yep.
in the second one, Keith Cook.
Mm-hmm.
Very famous to me if you're into martial arts movies. He was in China O'Brien, King of the Kickboxers, which is a awesome movie if you're into blood sport and kick. It's more of a kickboxer ripoff, but Keith Cook was always rumored to be as fast with his feet as Bruce Lee was with his fist, and it was
Yeah.
great to see him in that. So like I'm gonna be a fan of anything he's in, and like I said at the end, it wasn't as bad. It's bad, but definitely
Yeah.
didn't hold the original. They changed the Sonya. Hey, we still had Kerry Haruoka Tagawa as Shang Tsung, but then you added in that weird dude as
As
oh god
Raiden.
no, well yeah, there was the Raiden change, and then we had a Shao Kahn who was played by Brian. He was in one of it's Brian something. I think he was in like one of the Terminator movies.
Yeah, he was really weird. I remember
Cobra. I think he was the main killer in Cobra. He's a very interesting actor. There's in a lot of fun movies, we'll say.
his inflections. His inflections are really weird. Like, you think you'd be watching, and he'd be like, "I'm going to kill you right now," but he'd be like, "I'm going to kill you right now." His inflections were always weird, but I mean, it
Which is
worked.
fun.
It worked for Shao Kahn. I mean, I think he played a good Shao Kahn, even though he didn't he kept the helmet on for like the first like 10 minutes of the movie. Like after he killed Johnny Cage in Annihilation. Spoiler alert, in case you haven't watched Annihilation for some reason. Johnny Cage dies in like the beginning of the movie, which fucking sucked. But it's like once he killed Johnny Cage, it's like, okay, I don't have to wear this menacing skull mask anymore. And I'm like, dude, come on, man, you're Shao Kahn. Like that was the coolest thing about Shao Kahn was wearing that skull like samurai mask. That was fucking awesome.
Yeah,
You
other than that,
know?
I just felt like a weird, like German enemy in some random
Yeah.
action movie.
Yeah, he looked like an extra from Blade Runner,
Yeah.
at that point, But we had
Brian
Annihil
Thompson. Actually, that's his name, Brian Thompson, because I
uh
work with a guy named Brian Thompson. I always thought that was funny.
But we had Annihilation come out, and then we had something really interesting come out, and I'm gonna pull up my notes because I was just like, man, I want to mention this this television show. Because I mentioned earlier about the sound the VHS
Yeah, I mean they went all out with production as far as TV shows, with
Yeah,
the movies.
they had a cartoon series called Mortal Kombat Defenders of the Realm, and
Woof.
oh yeah, it was okay. At the time, USA had some sort of deal where they had Street Fighter and they had Mortal Kombat. Street Fighter was pretty much it wasn't bad. It was very GI Joe-ish. And that's kind of how they did Defenders of the Realm too, where it was just kind of like it was a kids show, so it wasn't as violent. And at the end of the show, they did kind of have that whole GI Joe moment of teaching the kids a lesson, like, oh, this is why you don't mess with the kitchen. They would have something like that. But I'm looking at the voice actors. I'm looking at the voice actors of Defender of the Realm, and it is a loaded cast. Okay, first and foremost, the actress who played Katana was Cree Summer. And Cree Summer, I mean, she's best.
Oh, from Different World.
Yeah, and she's best known from Rugrats as Susie and fucking Penny from Inspector Gadget. That's where she got her debut.
Did Penny?
She did Penny.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's who did the voice of Katana. Okay, then you had and this is funny because you had the actor from Highlander in Mortal Kombat who played Raiden, that Christopher
Lambert.
Yeah, you had him. But then who did the voice of Raiden in Defenders of the Realm? Clancy fucking Brown.
Clancy Brown, Pet Cemetery too.
Yeah, and he was also in Highlander. I was like, there could only be one, but not if you're playing a Raiden, apparently. So you had him. You had Brian Tashi, who was in Star Trek, and you also had Ron fucking Perlman playing Stryker and Scorpion. He did the voice of Scorpion. And then, last but not least, one of the most notable mentions is Luke 90210 Perry, God rest your soul, man, doing the voice of Sub-Zero.
Damn.
Yeah. Isn't that fucking crazy?
Damn, that was I've never looked at the list of like who did the voice acting.
So yeah, they had. I mean, it only had one season. It had 13 episodes. It ran from September 21st to December 14th, 1996. But for its time, and you could tell USA, they had a lot of faith in the Mortal Kombat brand because they brought some big name actors into that series. And I'll say, if you want to check it out, you can probably watch the episodes on YouTube. Probably the worst part of that whole series was Sonya Blade, because she had this stupid catchphrase that she'd always be like, "It's combat time." She'd always fucking say that.
Yeah, cartoons, you gotta have that. And then with that, we had the live action, which
right after WCW Nitro.
Exactly. We probably talked about this before. That's how we ended up watching. We'd watch that until like we took acid and watched the Nitro again. So
yeah.
We actually ended up seeing a lot of, and I thought the live action Mortal Kombat show was really not it was not that bad. Way much better than the cartoon.
Yeah.
It's still not on par, I'd say, with the first movie, but it's still slightly enjoyable if you're a fan.
I was a lot younger. I'm younger than you are, James. So I remember after I watched Monday Night Nitro, I was supposed to go to sleep because I had school the next morning. So I remember I would want to watch the Mortal Kombat show, and I wasn't allowed to, but I had TV in my room. So I remember I would watch the Mortal Kombat television show with a towel under, like, hiding the crack of my door from the light of the tube television, and I would watch most of it in closed captions.
See, you didn't have a phone you could hide, or a tablet you could hide under your bed and watch it.
Yeah, I would
have to be like real slick about it.
Yeah, and sometimes, like, my mom or my stepdad at the time would end up coming in, and I'd turn the TV off real quick. But see, televisions now don't have this telltale sign that TV's been on. Two televisions, though, they could put their hand on the TV and feel the heat, and like, oh, you were watching TV. I'm like, fuck.
Also, too, some TVs was cool. They had like some headphone. I can't remember if it ran through the TV or something. The VCR. You had the headphone.
Yeah, the headphone jack. But I mean, I don't. Yeah, my television didn't have a headphone jack, but I didn't want to.
Mm,
Even if it did, I wouldn't have trusted it because
yeah.
I was being sneaky. I did not want to. I want to have all six senses to make sure I was watching
Oh yeah, you get the
this freaking.
headphones in. Parents open the room. You're like,
Oh,
oh.
would have been caught red-handed, man. But yeah, I mean, you had the television shows, and we talked about Mortal Kombat 3. Okay, and then we had Mortal Kombat 4. Okay, Mortal Kombat 4 was
Big change.
huge change. 3D fighting games were big at the time. We had Virtual Fighter, we had Tekken, Battle Arena Toshinden, Soul Edge that would eventually turn into Soul Calibur, and Midway was like, hey, we need to get in on this. No one wants to play 2D fighters anymore. Let's make a 3D fighter, and that was Mortal Kombat 4. And Mortal Kombat 4, I don't want to say it's like the black sheep of the series, but it's the game in the series that you don't hear a whole lot of people talk about.
No, it was one I actually wanted to go. I didn't get a chance to before the show. I did actually because, goddamn, I think I got it on Sega Dreamcast. I have to hook it up and
Oh, that's the best. That's the best version. Mortal Kombat 4 Gold. It's got more fighters.
It was one. It just like you said, it had that 3D element that just didn't
And weapons.
quite seem to work. And that was the first one that brought in. No, we had a couple weapons in like 3 and some of those. They did start implementing those, and we'll say the weapons didn't really get better till later on. But it was definitely, I think, an experiment they tried at because, hey, you got to keep up with the trends. They didn't want to. You can't keep doing the 2D games. Got to try something different. And like, I'm sure there's probably some big fans of it, and it's one I would like to try out again. But I just remember that one being kind of like a little like fall off moment.
Yeah,
well, I mean, my fall off was 3 Ultimate, and then like 4 something new, and it's kind of like, ew, like I wonder where the series is going. Like, is this gonna last?
Yeah, it was starting to get a little stale. And then we had the spin-offs of Sub-Zero Mythologies, which was like a poor 2D side-scrolling adventure Sub-Zero game that could have been really good, but it was like they wanted to keep it Mortal Kombat. So it played like Mortal Kombat, but it was a 2D side-scroller, so it didn't play too well. It didn't translate. But I think
idea seemed okay.
Yeah.
Compare it to like the was it Batman Forever that kind of used the Mortal Kombat fight system. I mean, I'd rather play Sub-Zero Mythologies. It's also very hard.
It is.
It was an interesting concept. I liked the idea of branching out, which they tried, and there was the other one, the Special Forces, which actually I never played.
Oh, I never played it, and I was about to say I think that was the nail in the coffin of Mortal Kombat for many years. When they put out Special Forces, I remember that game got such a low score on like every magazine I ever picked up. It was like Special Forces on the PlayStation. Do not play it.
And it was a Jax. It was a Jax specific game.
Yeah.
And I want to say it was almost some type of like like I didn't really play it, so I could be wrong. I thought it was some type of like first person game in a sense.
I've never played either. It may have had like first person. It may have been that way. Like I said, I still have never played it because that was like after.
We need to play that.
Yeah,
we can talk about games been playing next episode. And
yeah,
we can break it out in some pie and
see if we can, definitely check it out.
Play it.
Yeah, definitely check it out.
One thing too with the mythologies is I would definitely say the better version, the best part of it was the cutscenes. Had lots to do with Quan Chi. You got to go with the PlayStation's version.
Yep,
because that's what's got and it's
had the FMV FMV sequences which were very timeless. They were timeless at the time, and it's just funny to go back to. But yeah, you had that. You had Special Forces. Mortal Kombat fell off the face of the earth, and then we had the revival of Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance. Now I want to keep in mind we've went through almost every Mortal Kombat game. In order, and I think we could sum up Deadly Alliance and Mortal Kombat Conquest. I think we can talk about both of those because they're pretty much the same game. Conquest was a little better, and I think the biggest thing about Conquest that I really liked was the adventure mode.
Was was the Conquest in Deadly Alliance, or was that in Deception? Because I get confused
Oh
between
yes, yeah,
Deadly
you're
Alliance,
right. You're right.
Deception,
Deception.
and
Dece-
Armageddon, or
you're right.
they're
You're
a
right.
blur.
I'm totally wrong. Deception was the one after Deadly Alliance, and Deception was the one that had, that's when we were introduced to the crypt system. You could unlock, Mortal Kombat history. You were playing as this, no name guy going through the Mortal Kombat universe, and you would get into fights, and it was pretty much showing you how to fight with every single character in the game. It had a story mode. It was great. It was fantastic. I fucking loved it. And Deadly Alliance, prior, you had three different fighting styles that you could switch between. You had the weapons from Mortal Kombat 4. They introduced some new characters like Bo Raicho, who was like this fat sensei guy. Yeah, he would puke and fart all over everybody. That was pretty cool. And then, Mortal Kombat kind of went back into stale mode with Armageddon. Wasn't a good game. I think the biggest thing about Armageddon that I remember
Deception. We'll have Deception before Armageddon. Deadly Alliance Deception. Deception was the one that brought in the Conquest.
Yes.
Which we were big fans of. We all actually really, I enjoyed that more than the regular game. It's kind of like an adventure game, going around collecting shit, going through towns.
Oh, it was so good. You go through the Nether Realm, and you would run into Scorpion's ninja clan that was still down there. And I remember you'd run into demon people that all spoke backwards. That was something really fucking cool.
It was nice that they had their basic game. They tried to add that in. And then I'd say with the Armageddon, that might have been the one that added the puzzle combat. Just a
puzzle,
fun little kind of Tetris
and kart combat. Yeah, the Mario
motor combat.
Yeah, it was like the Mario Kart Mortal Kombat game. You had that, and then this was the interesting thing about Armageddon, because Armageddon was like the Mortal Kombat trilogy feel, where it was like Armageddon had every single character from the Mortal Kombat series prior, but it was very lazy. And the reason why I say it was very lazy is because they added Motaro. And Motaro, is a centaur from Mortal Kombat 3. He's supposed to be like half man, half horse beast guy. But he wasn't a half man, half horse beast guy in Armageddon. He didn't have, the bottom half of him had two legs. Yeah.
He's kind of a half a centaur.
He was like a pan. That was pretty much the best way to describe it. He was like Pan. It didn't make any sense whatsoever. So that, and also the fact that they had so many characters that they couldn't have individual fatalities. So they had this quote unquote create your own fatality with every character, which was just. I could say it was lazy, but it was just. I think it all came down to limitations, because this was also, I believe, the second Mortal Kombat that had online support with the PS2 and Xbox, and even GameCube had online support. I think they even had to
create a character too. Finally, in one of these.
Yeah, they did. The created character was actually pretty good. It was pretty good.
And that was just like an interesting, string of games, for the PlayStation 2. And some crossed over a bit, and I think that was when they kind of went maybe around the time when they went bankrupt and someone had bought them out, and then we kind of stepped into the new age.
Yeah,
of it all.
You had the reboot of Mortal Kombat, which came out this.
And I don't know if that one came first. There was the Mortal Kombat DC.
No, Mortal Kombat DC. Yeah, Mortal Kombat DC came out after Armageddon, and that's when it kind of went bankrupt.
Okay.
And then you had the reboot of Mortal Kombat, and it was funny because right around when Mortal Kombat the reboot, aka Mortal Kombat 9, when that came out, that was around the same time that the PlayStation 3 network went down over all this hacking. So, because I remember I had it on the 360, and I absolutely loved it, and my friends who had it on the PS3 couldn't even play it online because the PSN network was down at the time. That was like... That cemented Mortal Kombat for what we know today.
Yeah, it really was the restart, like you said, the reboot. I love the story, the fact of how a lot of fighting games kind of took on that story style of
Mm-hmm.
you had to play as everybody, and they kind of did a rehash of some of the old stories, and that one really kind of came like a return to form to me, to where I was never, we could say Mortal Kombat had the gore gimmick. It was a decent game to me. It still never held up to Street Fighter or Tekken, but this was when it finally to me became
Yeah.
like a great fighting game.
Yeah, NetherRealm Studios. This is when it became NetherRealm Studios, and I'm telling you, man, that's when shit got real. Like that, the story modes got really good. We saw that carry over to Injustice: Gods Among Us.
Yeah, that which brought on that, which are awesome.
Great
I still
games.
gonna, I still never played the first Injustice. I still would like to go back and play the Mortal Kombat versus DC, but I got the second Injustice, which I absolutely loved, and it made me want to go back and get the original Injustice. But
Yeah,
that
see, I've
series,
never I never played the second. I've always played Injustice, the first one, Gods Among
oh
Us, and
man,
that I
the
liked
second
it.
one. If you like it, dude, the second one, it's probably really cheap, man. The second one is really
I
fun,
I want to
man.
I want to play the second one anyway because it's got the fucking Ninja Turtles in it.
The story, yeah, I didn't get any of the extra download characters any, but like the story, the mixture. I've never been the biggest comic fan, but I just loved the yeah, like I said, the fighting. If you're familiar with Mortal Kombat, and then they did get a little bit more violent, to where they were
Hmm.
accepting with I can't remember if it actually quite had fatalities, but you definitely had you could break through walls
I
in
mean,
different stage
yeah, I mean,
levels.
in Injustice, I mean, Superman in that beginning movie in Injustice when he fucking kills the Joker, like he runs his hand through Joker's chest, and you like see his hand on the other side of Joker because Joker killed Lois Lane, and I mean that was just like, and even Batman's like, "Yo, dude, that's kind of fucked up."
That's why I also too I really don't want to forget one of my absolute favorites, which to me stemmed from the conquest mode, was the Shaolin Monks.
I'm
Um,
glad you mentioned it. I had that in the back of my head. I was going to mention it, but we got too caught up in the chronological in the
yeah,
order of everything.
jumped a little bit further. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
somewhere in the middle. The Shaolin Monks, I would say, was after. It was after Deception. I got a little timeline here written. It was after Deception, in between
Mm-hmm.
Armageddon. It was a standalone, pretty much a beat 'em up. Like if you
Yep.
like beat 'em ups, Mortal Kombat, fatalities. Also a tough game as it went on. I'm not sure if I actually ever beat it, but we played a lot of two-player, and man, like you could uppercut people on the spikes on the ceiling.
Yeah, and it
It's
had
still kind of a sought-after game that so many people really hold fondly. It was two, like I said, co-op. Man, you couldn't beat it. Like I said, it was not one-on-one, but it was just a
it
beat
was
'em
it
up
was a
game.
great game, and it had unlockable Mortal Kombat 2. You can unlock Mortal Kombat
Yeah,
2 on it, which was really really cool. But yeah, I
that was
think
a time when it was hard to, we didn't have all these collections and
yeah.
individual downloads of games, so you were lucky. It was like getting, TMNT, the arcade game, on one of the Ninja Turtle games.
Yeah, it
Uh,
was really special to have that. Because I think that was even before we had the Midway Treasures, which Midway Treasures 2 came with Mortal Kombat 2 and 3.
yeah, and that's still such a fun one, dude. If anybody's hanging out with your friend, you got it. If you can play it on
Mm-hmm.
anything, just go. Like I believe you're playing. I don't know if you had like four characters to pick from. It's like
Yeah,
Sub Zero, Scorpion, probably Liu Kang,
and
and
Kung Lao.
Kung Lao.
Yep. But yeah, I think that wraps it up because I mean we're going to get into like the Mortal Kombat 10 and 11 territory, and I think most people that are listening to this podcast know about Mortal Kombat X and Mortal Kombat 11. I mean Mortal Kombat
Yeah,
11
two of the
is
newest ones.
yeah, they're still pushing hard, especially with 11. They're still coming out with DLC, but yeah, I mean that I think that's a really good closing spot with our Mortal Kombat talk. I think we covered a
And
lot
just
of
the
Mortal
crazy
Kombat.
characters, I'd say they've
Yeah,
added in, as far as like, Leatherface, Jason,
fucking
Freddy,
mocap.
just to see all these extra a character that was like Alien, Predator. I don't know. They might have all been in there, and just have those in, this world. I thought it was just super awesome. And like I said, still great games. Stories to me on those two, I still love. They still get tough when you got to do those damn like 1-on-2 fights. They're still tough games, but man, like I said, the story was the stuff where you get the kids of the Mortal Kombat characters, and just like I thought it really had a great story to where it's become one more of my favorite fighting games, especially as far as like with the story. You picture fighting games, you want to fight. But
Yeah.
man, I love the story that goes along with it. It's just so it's so great. Any of the last ones, like I said, the 10 or the 9 or whatever, the X,
Yeah.
or 9, whatever. The last 3 ones are really good, and we're up to 11. And I mean, it's still a great game. Breaking through stages. You still got all the crazy fatalities. You got those super bone break X-ray moves. It's just become like an amazing game when you think of where you started from that first Mortal Kombat, which we'll say the violence was the gimmick, not the greatest game.
Yeah.
Now you've actually got a legit competitor against, those top games, the Street Fighters, the Tekkens. It's one that really holds up, and it's turned into an amazing series that who thought with like a gimmick bloody game that we would still have after all these different versions and everything that came out. And not to mention, there's also many handheld modes, which we're not going to get into. But
all the way from like the Tiger handhelds. I mean, they even had Tiger handhelds of Mortal Kombat. I mean, it was.
I had Mortal Kombat on Game Gear, and
I'm sorry.
I played. No, dude, I played. I ripped the head off with Sub-Zero, man. I had a good time.
It was better than Game Boy. I will admit that. I had.
God.
Yeah, I had Mortal Kombat on the Game Gear, and I just remember very vaguely that it only had like 2 stages. But I mean,
yeah, you could fight Goro's pit and you might could fight on the pit. And then it was different GBA versions too, which actually looking up, I'm kind of curious, and I might go back and like check out a couple like
Mortal Kombat Advance.
Yeah, I think even Armageddon and some of those weird ones might have had some on like the DS. So I mean, there's such a wide array of ways you can play this game. That's had so many, like you said, which could have just been a flash in the pan. And it's managed to be a long-running series for, over 20 years, and it's putting out better games than it ever has.
Definitely. But, for you guys that are listening, if you have some Mortal Kombat memories, if you have a favorite Mortal Kombat character, a favorite Mortal Kombat game, maybe you completely disagree with us with Armageddon, and you think that was like... No, not Armageddon, but Annihilation, like the Mortal Kombat Annihilation movie, and you thought that was like the Citizen's Kane of like video game movies, leave a comment. Let us know. You can hit us up on youtube.com/Skullion, where you can listen to archived episodes, or you can leave it in your review on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio when you listen to us, because reviews really help the show, especially if they're good reviews, by the way.
Yeah. Also, too, don't want to reminisce defense to what's in this episode was the new Mortal Kombat trailer.
Yeah, let us know about that too. Yeah,
I mean, because like I'm excited, dude. Like April 16th, Sub-Zero is my favorite. It's my absolute favorite Mortal Kombat character.
He's so badass in this movie.
When I always go to, trailer is sick. It looks like this could be the one that people always wanted with fatalities. You got the HBO Max.
I was going to say it's going to be on HBO Max. So if you're like
April
me,
16th.
If you're like me and you love going to movie theaters, but not only is it, kind of problematic with, the whole pandemic, but if you're like me and you don't want to sit beside someone who's like slurping Italian ice and munching on popcorn in your fucking ear, and you want to watch it in the convenience of your home, HBO
You
Max.
can do it. And also too with theaters, you never know. There's like less and less people there. They're spread out more, so you might not have to deal with the munching and
Yeah,
crunching.
thank
So
God.
I might check out in the theater if I can, and if not, like I said, I will definitely be getting it. When as soon as it comes out, like I'm pretty excited about that, and like having it being like kind of Sub-Zero
I
being the main
I do.
guy. I think it's gonna be awesome, dude. I'm
Yeah.
really pumped about it.
Yeah, I do admit I'm probably gonna subscribe to HBO Max because I got
We can
Mortal
remember
Kombat, King Kong versus
Saints,
Godzilla.
the mini Saints in New Jersey, the Sopranos prequel. That's going to be
Yeah,
on there too.
and
If you're into that,
Godzilla versus King Kong, fucking the new Justice League Zack Snyder cut. I want to watch that too. I mean, shit. I'm probably gonna look into it when we're done with this episode about HBO Max. If anything,
yeah, it's like
I'll get it
it's
and
like
watch.
15 a month. So if anybody wants to know, it's like 15. So if
Yeah,
you want to check out a couple movies, maybe just wait a little bit and sign up for
watch
1 month. But
watch Curb Your Enthusiasm because that's a fucking awesome show.
yeah, I can't do that. It stresses me out too much. But that's me. But I've heard a lot of people that have streaming services, and HBO Max is like at their top of their streaming services that they really think is worth the money, and especially getting these new release movies coming out on there. And it's worth it. Hey, at least sign up for a month or two and check out some fucking sweet movies. Because hey, $15, that's probably less or equal than a price to the theater. You can chill at your home and do your whatever choices. What do you want to do? If you want to drink and participate in other activities, you can do that in the comfort of your home.
Indeed, indeed. Now, closing with the show. We're kind of running short on time, so I think we're gonna keep it very brief on games we've been playing I'm gonna keep it brief for myself personally, because I haven't really been playing a whole lot. I did go back and start playing Yakuza Like a Dragon, which I remember the last episode when we were talking with Ryan that I was kind of nervous about getting back into it and like forgetting where I was and forgetting what was going on because I hadn't played since December, and here we are in March. Haven't forgot a freaking thing.
No, yeah, because like I said to me,
Yeah.
I've always said that it's a game I cannot play a year. I can go back to, and I've always been okay. That could just be me. Seems to be you. So maybe other
Yep.
people could, have that same experience also, to where you just don't feel like quite as lost as you do in some games. You're like, God, I got to start this over again. Just try to
Yeah.
jump back into it and go from where you were going.
Yeah, because I've always had a fear with that with games, and I think it's because I had a really bad experience when I was playing The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. I stopped playing, and then when I picked it back up, months later, maybe not months later, but like weeks later, I was Link, and I was in the middle of the ocean on my ship, and I had no idea where I was going.
Yeah.
So that's a terrible feeling, which Yakuza doesn't really do that. So I've been playing that. Been playing Capcom Stadium Arcade because for some crazy reason, no matter how many freaking versions I have of these Capcom compilations, I still buy them.
We support them.
I was like,
because we like those.
I was like, you know what? It's got fucking Strider on the Switch. I can play it handheld and I can rewind it, when I'm battling freaking that crazy gorilla monkey guy. I can rewind it. I can use save states. I can play, so many Capcom games on the Switch. Why not? $40, I can justify it.
That was 40.
Yeah, because
definitely,
I bought
definitely.
all the DLCs for it.
I'm a big fan of supporter of comps for many years, and I will always buy those. And like you said, having on the Switch, handheld, it's great. Whether it was the old Namco collection was one of the first ones I bought on Switch. Rolling Thunder, I will definitely always get those.
Fucking
Yeah.
Splatterhouse. They did come out with a Capcom Volume 2 on the Switch. I haven't checked it out yet, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I think it just got released, like Volume 2. I can't remember what they have on it.
I'll have to jump on the store. I've just been like, my stuff I've been playing has been limited, just like some work, getting off so late, and
Yeah, so
it's like I'm watching Law and Order. You
Yeah.
know.
So James, what have you been playing?
uh, Not really much. I've been watching Law and Order. I think last time we were with Ryan, we might have been talking about like Willy's Wonderland,
Oh
which
yeah,
I got.
I actually
It's
might
it's a
watch that today. Actually,
it's a $20 rental right now, and I'm gonna say it's man, I don't know. I mean, like it was fun. It extended from a whole Five Nights at Freddy, which stemmed from the documentary about Showbiz Pizza, the Rockafire explosion. And
yeah.
a little bit after that, I was looking at a timeline, and that was when Five Nights at Freddy came out, which is based, kind of like on Showbiz, which a lot of kids nowadays don't know. They might have Chuck E. Cheese, it's a dude in a costume running around. You don't have the electronic band, the Rockfire, which is really kind of weird and creepy, but it's all these dudes trying to kill you. And
Yeah.
originally another movie I saw a while back, which I highly recommend and I enjoyed more than Willy's Wonderland, was the Banana Splits movie. It was originally going to be a Five Nights at Freddy movie, and they couldn't get the rights, so they bought the rights to this old show, The Banana Splits, from the '70s.
Mm-hmm.
And it's fun. I think it's probably like a $3 rental if it's not on some type of streaming service. Uh, I kind of got to say go with that. I mean, they're both kind of different movies, especially when you think of price. Willy's Wonderland's $20. For too long, it'll be coming out on DVD. So maybe instead of a rental, get the DVD so you actually
Yeah.
have it, own it, can watch it again. It was fun. Nicolas Cage doesn't say a single damn word the whole movie. Um, Still, it was enjoyable, but to me, I had more fun with the banana splits. It was
Yeah.
a little bit more silly, almost even like a little bit more gory. I liked them both, but it's kind of weird to see this whole and I think I said last time I bought the Five Nights at Freddy's collection because I never played them. I know it's all the hype with the kids, and I don't really know about it. So I bought it because I was just like, now I want to try this out, And that's like I actually went to Showbiz as a kid. Um, but like I said, I did play a little bit of those, and mainly been watching, like I said, Law and Order,
Mm-hmm.
and watched the Willy's Wonderland. Like I said, Banana Splits. Me and my wife watched that. Me and her both kind of concurred that we like that one better. Ryan got Willy's Wonderland, and I told him about Banana Splits, and he got that right after when I told him about it, and he liked both. They're both a little different. I'd say for the cheaper version, Banana Splits, and I'd say maybe wait for Willy's Wonderland for a DVD Blu-ray release where you'll pay $20 and own it instead of a $20 rental. But I had to see it, you know.
Yeah.
So I got that, and I've still been getting some Japanese wrestling games coming in. Still waiting on the Polymega. Not a whole lot of updates on that still, and then hopefully, I'm kind of counting on maybe late March or into April, and then I'll still be getting my Analog Pocket,
Oh yeah.
which I kind of forgot about, and that'll be really cool. So hopefully I'll have a fun month, playing some old games. Especially looking forward to these Japanese wrestling games.
Oh
And I
yeah.
will say, actually, tonight there's a AEW pay-per-view Revolution, and I'm kind of excited because there's a championship match with John Moxley, Kenny Omega, and an exploding no rope barbed wire death match, which
Nice.
was a huge thing in Japan that started back in the '90s. FMW, Big Japan, they did a lot of that, and this is
Yeah.
one of the first. Couple smaller organizations have tried to do it on American soil, but I think this will be the first one that'll be done right. It's something that's definitely not for everybody, but I'm kind of a deathmatch fan, and I'm like with these two guys, Moxley, Dean Ambrose. He came up through CZW deathmatch. Kenny Omega's not done a whole lot of those. He's the champ now, but I'm really looking forward to that because I just see him like exploding barbed wire death, and I'm like I love it. So yeah, I'll be getting that pay-per-view tonight. So anybody's stuff's always on replay if you're into AEW. A lot of people aren't, some are. I always get the pay-per-views, though I don't watch the show. But definitely picking up that pay-per-view tonight, hanging out with a couple friends, and really looking forward to that.
Awesome. Well, I think this concludes another episode of XS Gaming Podcast, and man, this was a great episode. I was like, man, we're going to talk about Mortal Kombat, but man, I had no idea we were going to dive into it like we did. But I love this series. I love Mortal Kombat, and
it is one thing too. Not to forget the that YouTube series you can get on DVD.
Yeah.
Which actually was possibly till this new movie, I think was the best version. It's Mortal Kombat. I don't know if it's Retribution. It's if you look up the Mortal Kombat YouTube miniseries, it's Michael Jai White's in it. It's got some really good true martial artist actors, and my wife watched that too. Really enjoyed it. It's a lot of like little shorts, kind of run together into a full movie. And like I said, I think it's easily available on YouTube, or it's also available on Blu-ray. And that one's also really good if you're into Mortal Kombat, and maybe the movies didn't live up to your expectation. I definitely say check that one out, because I mean it's just it's really fun. Like I think they did a really good job with it. It was just almost kind of like a fan project that turned into a semi real movie with a little bit of funding, and it's great. I think it'd be a nice warm up to the new movie coming out in the meantime. And hey, watch the old Mortal Kombat movie, and hell, watch Annihilation too.
Yeah. And anyway, guys, as always, thanks for listening. And again, check us out on YouTube.com/Xander Skullion. Check us out on iTunes. Check us out on Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Spotify. And if there's a podcast catcher that you like to listen to, say like, hey, I like to listen to the podcast thing.com. I'm just making up something. Message me on Twitter.
Podbutt.com.
Yes, Podbutt. Yeah, just message me on Twitter. That's Twitter at XS Gaming Podcast. But can you get on this podcast catcher? Because I want to check you guys, every other week when you put out a new episode. And I'm like, okay, I'll do that. But anyway, guys, as always, thanks for listening. Hope you guys have a great day. And as always, happy gaming.
Have a pleasant evening, everyone.